So before we can get started learning your first song, we need to understand which note is which on our musical keyboard. Now, of course, you could label this, particularly when you're first starting. Labeling the keyboard can be just a good way of taking that friction away from your learning process. It just makes it that bit more accessible. But at some point, you do want to be able to recognize which note is on the keyboard, regardless of where it is. You want to be able to instantly identify what a note is, just at a glance. Now, it might, at a glance, look like a whole mess of notes, but there is a pattern here. And as you may have noticed, it's visible in the black notes. So all the way up the piano, we have this grouping of 2 and then 3 black notes, repeating up the piano. And by focusing on this repeating pattern of black notes, we can keep track of where our notes are. So let's start by learning how to identify the white notes, and then later we'll look at identifying the black notes. So the first little tip I can give you with identifying the white notes is what I call the donkey is in the stable. So the donkey is the note D, and our stable is this group of 2 notes, the 2 black notes. Doesn't matter if it's these black notes, or these ones, or these ones. The note inside of that stable will always be D, D for donkey. And if you know where D is, well, you can then find your other notes. The note to the left of it, the white note to the left of your D, is C, because you're going back down the alphabet. And the note to the right of the donkey is E. Now, in our musical keyboard, the white notes are named after the first 7 letters of the alphabet. We've already talked about D. We can find our way back down to A, C, B, A. And as I mentioned before, as we go up, we have that pattern. So we go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it repeats again, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So the key to being able to find the notes at the piano is often having that reference. We have the donkey in the stable to be a great starting point. Another reference to bear in mind is that when you have the group of 2 black notes, the note just before them, the white note just before them, is C. And if you also thought about the group of black notes, the 3 black notes, the note before those 3 is F. So we've got 3 different references there. The donkey in the stable with our group of 2, or we could think about the white note at the beginning of the 2 as C, and F here before our 3. But as I mentioned before, this is the sort of thing which after a while it will become second nature. Don't get too worried about having to memorize every note. Before you know it, it will be just in your head, and you won't even have to think about it. So those are our white notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, repeating up the keyboard. But what about these black notes? Well, at least with the songs we'll be learning, we won't be using the black notes as often. But of course, it's valuable to know what their names are and how we can find them. And the thing is with the black notes, they actually have 2 different names depending on context. They can either be referred to as a sharp or a flat. So let's start by looking at the sharp names. So this black note, for example, is referred to as C sharp because it's right next to C. C is to its left. So if we're on a white note like C, for example, and we go up the keyboard, i.e. to the right, that way is up. If we go up, we wind up with the sharp version of that note, so C sharp. You can think about it as sharp is sort of pointy, it's going up. C sharp. So this is D, this is our normal D note, so the black note, if we go up, is D sharp. What would this note be? That would be F sharp, G sharp, A sharp. But as I mentioned, we could also give these notes flat names as well, and that works in the opposite direction. So this is our regular D. The note to its left, going down the keyboard, is D flat. So unlike sharp, which was going up, flat's going down, and down on our keyboard is this way, to the left. So D is here, that's D flat. E is here, that's E flat. That would be G flat, A flat, and B flat. So the thing is with sharps and flats, it can seem weird and confusing that there's these 2 different names. And there is some method behind that madness, but when you're first starting with the piano, don't worry too much about correctly naming it sharp or flat. One or the other will do the job. But it's good to be able to speak both of those tongues, understand both naming conventions. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this lesson, don't be afraid to label your keyboard. You want to make the learning process as smooth and easy as possible. So if that involves writing on the names of the notes at the beginning, then do that. Of course, just make sure that you do label the notes correctly, because that could certainly trip you up later on. But if there's one thing to take away with identifying which note is which on the piano, is that the donkey is in the stable. Here's our stable, and there's the donkey, the note D.